Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you this morning and appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to hang out with us here on the broadcast on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.com, where the MixLR live feed broadcasts by itself. You don't have to do a thing on wakeupcalldt.com every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you're listening in on the main hub website, thanks so much for doing that as well. I am here at this segment of the Morning Menu, proudly presented by the Market Diner on 2100 Park Street in Syracuse, New York, in the regional market across from Destiny USA, with that wonderful partner that I have had in fantasy crime throughout the last couple of years and then some. And I appreciate his time. I appreciate his energy. The man just had his birthday, and he just told me he had to work on his birthday. Shameful. See, I think I think your birthday should be your little mini holiday, and you should have the day off. So, here's to me making sure that next year Mike gets the day off, or it just spin into the weekend. But this man works every day of the week, and he worked very diligently. So I appreciate him. I respect him. If you've been on HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com, you know that he puts in work every single day. And in the off-season, there is no off-season. So with that being said, I proudly welcome him here to the show. He did not pay me for that intro. I just care about the man, and I appreciate his work. Mike, how are we doing today?
Awesome. How you doing?
We're doing very well. And Mike, first and foremost, this is the final week for fantasy football in the sense of, if they're doing playoff whatnot and there's daily fantasy and that, but for most people playing the week-to-weeks, this is the end. This is where we have gotten to. This is where all the advice that we've given has hopefully helped people to get to the point where they stand today, minutes, hours, couple days from a trophy. And if you're playing in any of my Wake Up Call Fantasy Football Challenges, that trophy is a Lombardi. And it's a beautiful, heavy, awesome trophy that you want to put on your mantle. And if you get last place, well, then you get the toilet seat that you can put M&Ms in, and you can put it on your desk, and that's pretty fun too. So with that being said, we're fighting for everything in this week. And every single team of the 32 is playing on Sunday. There's no Thursday games, no Saturday games, no Monday games. You're going to find out Sunday, December 31st, before we ring in the new year, who the champ is. Just 1 o'clock and 4:25 games. That's all we got. So we're going to jump right into it. Green Bay at Detroit. Thoughts on this one?
Oof. I hope you don't have anybody on either one of these teams. This really doesn't mean anything. Hopefully you won your championship last week, or hopefully you're playing for it this week and you're going to win. But there's a few bright spots. Neither team really has anything to play for. But, I look for Matt Stafford to continue to be Matt Stafford. He's a top-level quarterback, and, if he's on your team, of course, you should be starting. He's definitely a QB1 this week. You can't really say the same thing on the other side of the ball about the quarterback situation there in Green Bay. But, running back-wise, it's been a struggle for both teams. I know that Jamal Williams has come on strong lately for the Pack, and that's probably the bright spot there. Running the ball in Detroit's kind of been what's held them up, I think. I think it's held them back. Keon Green's been looking good if you're looking for a desperation flex play, or if you're looking for, a way to improve your lineup. I don't know how you can improve your lineup with Keon Green, but, he is a guy that they're going to continue to give him looks and touches, because he looks like he could be something for the future there. Marvin Jones has done a pretty good job all year, and he's worthy of a wide receiver 1 designation. And same thing with Golden Tate. They're going to pass the ball in Detroit. That's what they do. So both of those guys you want to start. And tight end's been a challenge for both teams. But Eric Ebron's come strong late in the season here, and of course he's a tight end 1 this week.
Yeah, this game for me, it's really sad to see kind of how things went down with Green Bay and with Detroit. I mean, Detroit just had chance after chance after chance after chance after chance to get it done, and they hurt themselves. And then in the game against Atlanta, obviously that's one that's going to ring in the minds of Detroit fans for a long time. For Green Bay, there's really nobody here to call home about. Michael Clark is, he was their top receiver in their game where they got shut out by Minnesota at home in Green Bay. It's just none of these wide receivers are getting it done. You're seeing these names come up that you haven't heard all season. If you have to play anybody, it would be Jamal Williams, but that would be a low-end running back 3. So hopefully you're not in a situation with that. For the Lions in this game, because they're playing Green Bay, Matt Stafford's not a bad go. Tion Green is not a bad flex guy. And Eric Ebron's come on as of late, and Marvin Jones Jr. is usually the bet that you can lean on a little bit. He's been quiet in recent weeks, but typically he is the guy that you can look at. Ebron has a knee injury, has left him questionable. Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson are both questionable in this game. So is Richard Rodgers at tight end. Geronimo Allison was held out of practice due to an illness. He is questionable. Aaron Jones is doubtful for the game, so that's why I say Jamal Williams even more. So hopefully you don't have to go too far in this one, but Ebron, Jamal Williams, maybe Matt Stafford, that's really what I'm looking at. Houston at Indianapolis, thoughts on this one?
Well, there's a sneaky pick here, I think, if you're playing daily, but fantasy football-wise for your championship week here, you're probably not going to find value at the quarterback position. But Jacoby Brissett may be a sneaky play in a daily fantasy. He's the number 15 quarterback this week. TJ Yates on the other side of the ball, not so much. But the exciting thing to me is going to be, seeing the future here. There's going to be some questions at quarterback throughout the whole country, basically, no matter what region you're in, no matter what, whether it's AFC, whether it's NFC, North, South, East, West, whatever it is, there's going to be a lot of quarterback changes next year. So I'm interested to see how some of these guys that don't normally play quarterback, even if I'm not in a championship or something this week, even if I'm not vested with these guys, these are some of the things you got to look at now for next year. People go, well, that's next year, a lot can change. Yeah, a lot can change, but you can learn a lot by a lot of these guys because they've been waiting for an opportunity to get on the field. Now you have a chance to evaluate them, so don't take these games very lightly for next year. If you're a casual player, forget it. Go do what you want to do. At running back, I don't think you're going to find a lot of value here. Frank Gore is going to put up some decent numbers. He's a number 18 running back this week, and Lamar Miller's right behind him at number 19. And receiver-wise, T.Y. Hilton's probably the one lone bright spot here. I just don't know what's going to happen with the tight end position for either team. That's been a desperation position for both teams. However, Jack Doyle seems to be a guy that they look to continue to get the looks for. They continue to give him targets. It's just he's inconsistent at best, but he's a low-end tight end one this week with a lot of teams been nothing to play for.
Yeah, when you look at this game and kind of where these teams are at this point, there are going to be a lot of questions with Houston. Well, I mean, Deshaun Watson, it's about his health, but there's going to be questions at backup. Obviously, Houston has dealt with a multi-headed quarterback for a long time, well before Bill O'Brien, and they have to make sure that they have somebody because Tom Savage, he does some good things, but he doesn't stay healthy. And TJ Yates, when somebody sees a third-string quarterback that you're going up against, with no disrespect to TJ Yates, 9 times out of 10, teams win that game. And as far as Indy goes, Jacoby Brissett is not a bad quarterback. You have to understand what he has. Now, he has Frank Gore, and he has Marlon Mack, and he has some good receivers, but you have to understand the defense of Indianapolis and the protection of Indianapolis. And when you look at protection is everything. Protection is what keeps Andrew Luck, your starter, on the field, first and foremost. And then you move forward from there. So Jacoby Brissett, I don't think that he should be given I don't think he's been given a fair shake, is what I'm trying to say. I think there's more to him than meets the eye. There's a reason why the Patriots drafted him. And, I think that there's going to be some question marks at Indianapolis after this season about what the future is going to look like. As far as who to play in this game, DeAndre Hopkins finds his way to the end zone some way, somehow. So he's not a bad play at wide receiver. For the Colts, I really don't like anybody. I really don't. I mean, I want to tell you T.Y. Hilton, but he's been so up and down. And these guys aren't really scoring touchdowns. So T.Y. Hilton, Frank Gore, if you got to dig, hopefully you don't have to dig. Hopefully you have better than that. Hopefully the Colts are not a team you're leaning on to win the championship. Chicago at Minnesota, who do you have for this one?
I think Minnesota still has something to play for. They can get a first-round bye, so they're definitely looking to play for that first-round bye. So I think that elevates Case Keenum into a QB1 situation, especially against Chicago. I know Chicago's got an okay defense against young quarterbacks, but I don't think you can classify Case Keenum as a young quarterback anymore. He's definitely proven that with some playmakers around him and with some right play calls, and you let him do what he does best, and that's the thing. They've had some challenges in Minnesota. I mean, they lost Dalvin Cook at the beginning or mid-season there. He was having a heck of a rookie campaign, and they've been able to spread that out a little bit. Thielen's come around very strong. I think he's surpassed Diggs in some ways, but both of those guys I would consider wide receiver ones. And, the Bears aren't going to be too bad off. They're going to be able to run the ball. The Bears' running attack is the thing that kind of keeps them going. I'm not sure you can count on Mitch Trubisky at a quarterback, but, I think that if you're looking for RB2 stats from Jordan Howard, you're going to be okay there. Don't think he's going to be an RB1 this week at Minnesota. That's not going to happen. And then, throwing the ball, Chicago's kind of desperate. I don't know what we can look at here besides, maybe the tight end position, but then again, at the tight end position, they haven't been solid either. So I'd be real wary of anybody outside Jordan Howard on Chicago. Minnesota, those guys are on autopilot for you. It's a shame that Kyle Rudolph can't be an elite wide receiver this week. Tight end this week, but he's probably going to still be a bottom-end tight end one for you.
Yeah, with Chicago going up against Minnesota, I mean, Minnesota, like you said, they have something to play for. They're not going to take their foot off the pedal by any stretch of the imagination. I think some people whose championship games are in Week 17, there's that fear of, okay, well, I'm in the championship, and I got some people on Minnesota, and what does this mean for me? Well, this is a season where people are playing for a lot at the end of the year. You're not going to see New England really take guys out. You're not going to see, unless they're up by a ton, but you're not going to see New England do it. You're not going to see Pitt do it. You're not going to see Minnesota do it because they have to play because there's something on the line. And, for Minnesota, as far as, let me take a quick look at injuries here for both teams. Minnesota Vikings, Kyle Rudolph is questionable in the game. Sammy Bradford, who's on injured reserve, they're hoping that he'll return to practice. Just kind of make a note of something in the background just for you Minnesota fans to know. As far as Chicago goes, Adam Shaheen is questionable for the game. That's really it. I look at them and say Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen are options for you. Jordan Howard is the better option if you need to have a third running back. He's not a 1 or a 2. Then on the other side of things, it's hard for me to tell you Latavius or Jerick McKinnon because they're really not doing a ton. Together they look like they're okay, but it's back and forth. It's been Latavius Murray as of late, but he struggles to get into the end zone and have those opportunities. I like Stephon Diggs more than anybody going into the final week, maybe Adam Thielen as well for this game. Next one up is New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Now, there's a lot of scenarios that are going on right now, and Mike, when we look at the playoff scenarios, there's still some opportunity here for teams. It could be in the NFC, Philadelphia, Minnesota. It could be Philadelphia, Minnesota, then the Rams, or it could be Philadelphia. Believe it or not, it could be Philadelphia, Carolina could get into this thing. Then New Orleans could take the Rams spot, or Minnesota could take it. So seeds 2, 3, and 4 are still open for Minnesota, Rams, New Orleans, or Carolina. And then you got Atlanta fighting to get in, Seattle fighting to get in to try and figure things out in the NFC. And on the other side of it, in the AFC, believe it or not, folks, this might shock you and be crazy, but there's not only a chance for Buffalo to get in, there's still a chance for Buffalo to be a 5th seed or a 6th seed. There's a chance for the Chargers. And, to take a look at Tennessee has an opportunity, but Jacksonville's locked in at 3. Kansas City's locked in at 4. New England and Pitt are still fighting for either 1 or 2. But Baltimore, Buffalo, and the Chargers and Tennessee are all fighting for seeds 5 and 6 right now. So there's a lot on the line right now, which is good if your fantasy championship is this weekend. So with that being said, New England, that everybody fears is going to sit everybody, that's not going to happen this week. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I like New England if you have a New England player, especially Dion Lewis, and you probably got him at a bargain at some point, probably even picked him up off waivers late in the season. He's definitely a great daily fantasy play as well, especially on sites that offer more for PPR. he's going to be the guy, because don't forget Burkhead's injured. So, of course, you're starting Tom Brady, QB1, Deion Lewis, and RB1. Gronk, a tight end one. He's the best tight end in the game every time he steps foot on the field. As long as he's healthy, he's the number one guy. And, on the other side of the ball, I wish I could say the same about any Jets player. They got the three-headed running attack there. Those guys are all healthy, and they kind of cannibalize each other there. So you can't even count on a running back from the Jets. If you're, wide receiver, that's all Patriots as well. That's Brandon Cooks, so he's a wide receiver one. So if you have a Jet player, I'm sorry, you're probably not playing in the championship or playing late in the game anyway. But definitely, it's going to be all Patriots, and I don't think they're going to let their foot up off the gas in this one.
No, the Patriots, knowing that the fact that they didn't slam the door on the Steelers in that head-to-head matchup, there's still an opportunity for the Steelers to do exactly what their name is and steal away that number one spot in the playoffs, and not only have a first-round bye, but have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Of course, the Patriots want home field advantage throughout, and so this is still left open. And luckily for the Patriots, they have to take care of business against the Jets in order to slam the door. So just as things seem to always work out for the Patriots, it is no different this time around. Robbie Anderson's the best bet with the Jets, but he's a guy who probably is not going to be somebody that you're going to be able to lean on. Jermaine Kearse is questionable. Robbie Anderson is questionable with an illness in the in this game. Austin Seferian-Jenkins is questionable. So any of the options really for the quarterbacks for the Jets, but now they're going to Bryce Petty, and, the Jets are just kind of trying a little bit of everything, except for Christian Hackenberg, who they drafted out of Penn State and had this belief, apparently, that he was going to be a good player for them. And then almost immediately there were all these rumors that they had no faith in him, and there's nothing to refute that because they refuse to play him no matter what happens to their quarterback situation. New England Patriots always have a ton of people on the injury report, per always. Every single season, they seem to do this a lot, and they seem to milk it. Chris Hogan, James White, Mike Gillislee, Tom Brady, Rex Burkhead, Rob Gronkowski, Matthew Slater are all questionable for the game on offense. The Achilles in the left shoulder for Tom Brady. He has a booger in his nose. His hair moved to the left side and not the right side, so he's on the injury report. But, expect Tom Brady to be out there. He's worth playing. Deion Lewis is worth playing. Mike Gillislee, if you have to make a last-minute change, but he is a he did really well at the beginning of the year and then was quiet the rest of the year. So, I like Deion Lewis above anybody else there at running back. Gronkowski is probably your best option at tight end or receiver for New England as well. We're going to take a quick step aside for a fast break and come back and go the speed round to get you through the rest of your Week 17 advice for daily fantasy and for those playing in your championship game. And I do want to make a note on DeAndre Hopkins. He is going to end his consecutive streak, which was 79 games. He's not going to get to 80. He is going to most likely sit out. Now, there's conflicting reports that the head coach, Bill O'Brien, said, we're going to make it a game-time decision, but there's also the note that he has not been competing in practice and will be sitting out. So let me make a note on that. So if I said DeAndre Hopkins worth the play, take him off the list. My apologies. Most likely will be sitting out. Unless something changes drastically or Bill O'Brien's got a trick up his sleeve, it looks like we won't see DeAndre. We'll take a fast break. We'll be back in a minute.
This is a wake-up call. Fast break.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, the place to watch your fantasy championship game, and if you're in the consolation bracket, to watch it as well, or if you're playing in daily fantasy, or if you're just an NFL fan. Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue, Camillus, New York, in the Home Depot Plaza. That is where we sit and we watch and we get excited. There are fans there that wear almost every single jersey of the rainbow, it feels like. 32 teams, you see almost every single one of them come out, and I think you'll see that more so than ever this weekend. So make sure that you're one of those people wearing your jersey or your t-shirt or sweatshirt, whatever it may be, out at the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Next game up, Washington Redskins at the New York Giants. I would imagine that Mike and I can get through this one relatively fast.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is obviously the quarterback play here. He's playing for his future against a weak Giant defense, against a weak Giant secondary, that is. And, running back-wise, they're still going to give Wayne Gallman a shot from the Giants, but, he hasn't been performing very well on the other side of the ball. Samaje Perine still dinged up. Capri Bibbs might be the better value there at a flex play, and he might be the play in the maybe you're playing daily, because what if Samaje Perine tweaks that knee some more on a third play of the game or whatever? You don't want to be in a bad spot there. So watch the injury report. Very late game time decision, more probable. And receiver-wise, I don't know who you can count on outside Jamison Crowder. And I'm including the tight ends here as well. I just don't see any value anywhere else on the field. Maybe a tight end too in Vernon Davis.
Yeah, in this game we have a lot of people going on here that are on the injury report for the Giants. Sterling Shepard is questionable. Evan Ingram was a non-participant at Thursday's practice. He's questionable. Brandon Marshall's obviously still on injury reserve. This team's got so much going on. The Giants are fighting for the second pick. They're most likely going to get it. They stink. And Eli Apple with a suspension and a team member calling him a cancer. It's insult to injury to issues upon issues. It is a blank show. Fill that in with another word for poop. That is exactly what the Giants are showing you right now. It's ugly. So I don't really like anything going on with the Giants. I mean, if Evan Ingram is good enough to go and he does play in this game, then he's something to look at, but he's been relatively quiet. I really don't like anybody on either side of this thing except for Kirk Cousins because, like Mike said, he's fighting for his life. He's fighting for another team that's finally going to pay him and take him off the franchise tag. Dallas at Philadelphia. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this would be a brutal game. Probably going to bypass this one if I can entirely. I mean, maybe Dak Prescott is the top-end quarterback, too. Nick Foles, don't even consider. Ezekiel Elliott, of course, he's going to be a bottom-end running back this week against the Philly defense. On the other side of the ball, it's going to be a hodgepodge. It's going to be a mixture of guys running the ball, so I don't think you can count on any one of them. And receiver-wise, there's not a lot of value here either. I think the thing to watch out here for is the Philadelphia Eagles players, just the role players, the defensive guys, the linemen, are they going to be able to escape this game without injury? Because, you know what, they're limping their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, this is just it's an ugly game here. Dallas is going to fight only for bragging rights in this one because they're not going to the playoffs. Ezekiel Elliott came back and it didn't matter. Zeke's selfishness affected the team this season, and the team had their own woes, and Sean Lee being out does a lot of negative things to the team. So, it's been a rough year for the Dallas Cowboys. But to think that Ezekiel Elliott's your savior, you better think twice and figure that one out. As far as who to play in this game, Dez Bryant is an option for you as a low-end wide receiver too. I mean, that's really all that I look at. As far as injuries go on both sides of this thing, to take a quick look at Dallas, Dez Bryant is questionable and was unable to practice due to a knee injury, so you have to watch that. Rod Smith, Cole Beasley, both questionable for the game for Dallas. And then for Philadelphia, they really don't have anybody outside of Carson Wentz once again, which is a good thing. As far as who I would play in this one, Nicky Foles, I think he'll have some fun. He's a low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 for me. Jay Ajayi is somebody to look at, but really Zach Ertz and Nelson Aguilar, Jay Ajayi as a flex guy are who I'm looking at in this game. Next one up, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Cleveland is definitely probably going to get a Sam Darnold or a Josh Rosen or a Josh Allen in there next year. So this is what they're playing for. Absolutely nothing. And the Steelers are trying to stay healthy. It doesn't look like Le'Veon Bell is going to make the game. Of course, Antonio Brown's dinged up. They're hoping he comes back. And that's even more the reason for them to try to get that home field advantage. But, I just don't think they have to put forth that much effort to beat Cleveland in Pittsburgh. So if you have some guys on this roster, the only guy I can think of that's a definite start is a Juju Smith-Schuster, because even on the other side of the ball, when you look at what Josh Gordon's been able to do, he's going to be covered up by Joe Hayden. Everybody's just trying to stay healthy in this game. Maybe a Jesse James at tight end number 2 for you. There's going to be some value, if you're looking for daily fantasy, maybe in Isaiah Crowell. I don't think you're going to find a lot of players in this one, so I would just get the remote and change the station.
Yeah, for this one with Cleveland, like you said, they got nothing to play for. If they go 0-16, then they already have a sponsored party to celebrate how terrible they are in the streets, and then they'll get the number 1 pick, and for the 82nd time, they'll draft a quarterback. So, Cleveland's got nothing going on here. Like you said, Pittsburgh doesn't have to do too much, and, I do think Juju Smith-Schuster is worth putting out there, maybe a Martavis Bryant. I think Big Ben's going to play for a little bit, so if you have team quarterback, then roll with him. Maybe he'll play the first half, and we'll see how things go. I would imagine he'll be out there for a little bit, but I like Juju in this game above everybody. Carolina at Atlanta, thoughts on this one?
So this is a great game because both teams have to win. And, it doesn't matter if you don't win. It doesn't matter what else happens. So, both teams have to win. There's still a chance they're both still in, but a win definitely makes it a lot easier for everybody involved. The Panthers, of course, have the better record. And you know what? The Panthers have the better quarterback, too, in Cam Newton, slightly ahead of Matt Ryan this week. Both are QB1s, though. Devontae Freeman, obviously, still an RB1. Christian McCaffrey, especially in an PPR league, you bump him up a little bit, but in a non-PPR league, he's a mid-range running back, too. He's probably a top-end running back, too, in a PPR league. And receiving the ball, Carolina's still looking for some answers there. They're still looking to move the ball, and the only way they can really move the ball is with Greg Olsen. He's had a good game since he's been back. Look for him to continue to be the number 1 receiver every time he's on the field for Carolina. And Julio Jones, you got to start him. You know that. He's obviously the number one wide receiver in any given week. So, you're going to find some spot value there, and this is an intense game. This will be a game that I'm going to want to watch.
Yeah, this is a game where Greg Olsen, for everybody that's saying he came back, but did he really? This is one where he wants to make a statement. So Greg Olsen, the type of competitor that he is, I would say that in this game, he is a player to watch in fantasy, so you might want to have him out there. Christian McCaffrey is your best bet at running the ball and receiving the ball because he may be able to put together enough yardage to help you win your championship. And Cam Newton is questionable, but he's been that way for a couple weeks. I like him in this game as well. These are guys that know what it's like to Greg Olsen and Cam Newton, they know what it's like to go in the trenches and fight the battles and win the battles. So I'd put them out there. I like Christian McCaffrey as well. As far as Atlanta goes, Matty Ryan's been 1 touchdown, 1 interception all season long for the most part, which doesn't warrant me wanting to put him out there. In games where they need to win, they're not doing enough. They're getting by somehow, but they're not winning big games. They didn't defeat New Orleans, and that's obviously going to affect you. If Julio Jones is good to go from his ankle and thumb injury, put him out there. Tevin Coleman as well as Devontae Freeman are both worth plays as well. Matty Ryan, he throws to somebody, but, sometimes it's few and far between, and the numbers don't justify putting him out there for you. Kansas City at Denver. Kansas City has locked up their 4th spot, and, they could maybe give some breaks to some people out there. I would imagine that Kansas City might say, Tyreek, Kareem, you don't have to do too much. Travis, maybe you could stay in for a little while. But Kansas City might be that team to watch if you have Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and you're leaning on them in your championship. This may be a game where you may not want to lean very heavily upon them.
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys I think all those guys are going to sit. I think, you're right on it. Hunt, Hill, Kelce, Smith, they're probably all going to sit if play a series. And, That's rightfully so. That's the right thing to do. Denver, on the other hand, you're going to find some value in this, and I feel bad for Patrick Mahomes going to make that start at Denver. I mean, that's a tough place, tough defense. He's going to have this is a baptism by fire here. Hopefully, for their sake, Denver's sake, it's not going to be another Nate Peterman situation, but we'll see. I think they're looking at Pat Mahomes now and going, are you or are you not our guy? Because we may need to bring in an Eli Manning or do something different with a quarterback, or maybe draft a quarterback. They seem to be high on Allen, the kid from Wyoming. It reminds them a lot of Elway, and Elway's the man in Denver. C.J. Anderson's the value there. He's the number 10 running back this week, and Demaryius Thomas is going to get you some value as a mid-range wide receiver too this week, and you can't really count on a lot else in this game. So hopefully you don't have too many guys in this game, and the ones that you have, you can count on for tempered expectations.
Yeah, for this one, it's sad if you've been leaning on Kareem, Tyreek, and Travis, like I was saying, to have to kind of lean away and make some of those other moves at some of the players that we've been talking about, because Kareem, Tyreek, and Travis have been, for the most part, people that you can rely on. So if you have them on Kansas City, please understand that you're probably not going to see them out there. Or like Mike said, you may see them for a very short time. They have locked up their spot. They have nothing to play for. They cannot move. They're going to be in fourth no matter what. So this is not the day to say, let me put them out there. So if you're doing it for namesake, please understand that Week 17 is a different week than other weeks. As far as Denver goes, they've tried everything at quarterback. Demaryius Thomas, if you want to throw him out there, give him a shot. But again, this might be a nice game for you if you're a Denver fan, because you're not going to be playing the best of the best of Kansas City, but Denver has been atrocious all year long. So outside of Demaryius Thomas, I don't really feel good about anybody out there. Maybe a C.J. Anderson. Jacksonville at Tennessee. Jacksonville's locked up the third spot, but if they beat Tennessee, they send Tennessee out of the playoffs. So this game has some gain to it as well for Jacksonville.
Yeah, if I'm Jacksonville, and this is not politically correct to say, but I think I'd rather let Tennessee beat me so I can play them again next week, which would be the likely matchup, I would think. I don't know if I want to face the Ravens D. I don't know if I want to face the Chargers at all. If I'm a Jacksonville fan, I don't want any of that scenario. But Jacksonville's going to be resting guys. I mean, there's no sense in them risking a lot here. You're not going to see a Fournette. You're not going to see a lot of. I don't think there's going to be a lot of effort here, quite frankly. However, this is a Tom Coughlin team, and this is a team with some pride and some defense. So I think you're going to see some value. I think you're going to see some of these guys that continue to get their name in the paper. Dede Westbrook, Keelan Cole, Blake Bortles, even though he had a dismal performance last week at San Fran, he's been dynamic in obviously before that game, the number one quarterback fantasy-wise, in the entire NFL. So I think there's some value there. But on the other side of the ball here, they're not going to just give up. They're not just going to go, well, we can come in and go out. Derrick Henry's going to be the monster at running back. I think DeMarco Murray's dinged up a little bit. I'd be surprised if he got in the game at all. The challenge is what Marcus Mariota is going to show up. There's a good defense in Jacksonville, and Mariota really hasn't been himself this year. He has one great guy he can rely on in Delanie Walker. He's the number 2 tight end this week behind only Gronk. I think there's going to be a lot of dump-offs. I think there's going to be a lot of checkdowns because I think the Jacksonville defense is going to be a little bit much. But if you are looking for a receiver from Tennessee, it's obviously Rashard Matthews. Just, be prepared. Temper that down a little bit. He's probably going to be a low-range wide receiver, too, for you this week at best.
Yeah, for this game, and I tend to believe that Jacksonville is going to want to go with their players out there. I think they're going to want to put Leonard Fournette out there for a bit. Want to give him some time. The thing with Leonard Fournette is it's not just about sitting Fournette. It's about the fact that he hasn't been 100% and that he's been in and out of games. And you want to have him for the length of the playoffs because you're not going into the playoffs thinking, oh, it'll be cute to win a game. You're trying to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So for Leonard Fournette, I think that he may be tailored back a little bit, but I think we will see him. It's just whether or not that's enough for you, and I don't think it is. Keelan Cole, I like Keelan Cole. I like D.D. Westbrook because somebody's going to have to get the ball, and there's going to be opportunities out there for these guys. Keelan Cole is your best bet at receiver. I think Blake Bortles is going to be out there for, a good portion of this game. I don't think they want to take Blake Bortles out and run him cold into the playoffs. So I think we'll see Blake. I understand Leonard Fournette because it's more about his body and being 100%. So Blake Bortles, for me in this matchup, he's a low-end quarterback too. I like Keelan Cole in the matchup. And, really that's all I have to say about Jacksonville's side of thing outside of their defense and special teams. Their defense and special teams not going to slow down for anybody. As far as Marcus Mariota, I'm not sold on him. DeMarco Murray in this game is worth the play, and Delaney Walker as well. Corey Davis or Eric Decker, you could look at those options. I go back to the last game that they played up against each other and just make a note really quick of this before we run through the rest of these games, to make a note of Tennessee's win in Week 2 against Jacksonville in Jacksonville, just to let you know how things kind of went down. Derrick Henry was the guy, but he has gone through injury this week, so he's somebody DeMarco Murray hasn't been practicing, so Derrick Henry is the one to look to. So I flip-flop my thoughts there, pardon me on that one. But Derrick Henry looks to be the person to put out there. DeMarco Murray, probably not. He was the more quiet against Jacksonville. Delaney Walker and Rashard Matthews were utilized more. Eric Decker was used late. So, in this one, I would say Derrick Henry and Delaney Walker are your two best bets. And for Jacksonville, you know what I gave you on that one. I mean, Tennessee's playing for everything. I think Jacksonville's defense and special teams is a big one in this matchup. San Francisco at Los, because the thing is, Tennessee hasn't played their best, and I understand you don't want to play the Chargers, but Jacksonville defeated the Chargers. They didn't defeat Tennessee. And Jacksonville playing against Baltimore, they spanked Baltimore 44-7 early on in the season. And you don't want to be the team that goes 75% or 50% or 40% and lets Tennessee in, and then Tennessee comes into Jacksonville and beats you again, and you're that dumb team that let the team in that took you out. So you don't want to do that. I think Jacksonville's going to bring force to this, but I believe that Leonard Fournette might be a guy that they just kind of, they play with kid gloves because you want him for the playoffs. San Francisco at Los Angeles. San Fran's playing for it all because Garoppolo's riding a high, and the Rams are just trying to go into the playoffs as one of those strong teams that nobody wants to play. So what do you have for this?
Yeah, Rams are actually going to be resting everybody. If you have a Gurley, if you have any of the starters there, I mean, when Sean Mannion is going to be your starting quarterback, there's enough said. I mean, you may find some value in this game for some daily fantasy. I like Jimmy Garoppolo a lot. You may be able to get some bargain for him. He's a bottom-end QB1 this week. And here's a sneaky play, Malcolm Brown for the Rams. He may be able to do something there. He's a talented guy. He just can't get on the field. Malcolm Brown has an opportunity to give you some RB2 play at a possible flex or an RB2 position, save you a lot of money in daily leagues, or maybe he's even out there on the wire if you want a sneaky play. But this is the time of year, again, you don't want to get too cute. You don't want to overthink things. Dance with the one that brung you. Go with your guys. But in this game, unfortunately, a lot of those guys aren't going to be on the field.
Yeah, when you are the Rams and you know that you're going into the playoffs, the thought of having to go out there and win this game is not truly high. Now, you want to go in and you want to put in some good work, but the Rams have some good guys that are backing up the players that Mike said, could be sitting there watching this game with some popcorn. As far as San Fran goes, Trent Taylor, Garrett Selleck, and Marquise Goodwin, all questionable at wide receiver and tight end for the team. As far as the Rams go in this game, really quick notes here. Cooper Kupp is questionable. We won't see much of him in the game. That has already been noted that he will not be really out there for this team. So as far as San Fran goes, Jimmy G, if you're playing daily fantasy, I agree with that. I think he's worth putting out there. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a low-end quarterback, one, because he's going to try and have some fun against this Rams team. Carlos Hyde is an option for you as well. On the Rams side of things, there's really nothing to write home about, because if you're going to be letting the Higbees and the other Michael Thomas of the world and the Josh Reynolds kind of do some things, maybe you look to Sammy Watkins to try and get some things done, but my gut doesn't tell me to trust anybody on the Rams to win the championship for you. Buffalo at Miami, what do you have for this one?
Yeah, Buffalo has something to play for here, so I think that they're going to, they can win and be in, basically. I mean, they need the Ravens to lose as well. I get it, or Chargers lost and the Titans lost. It gets a bit convoluted there, but they got a scary defense, and this is where, I think that they can rise to the occasion. I think you're going to see a lot of LaShawn McCoy. I think LaShawn McCoy is definitely the guy that can win you your championship. He can be the difference. And even in daily, I'm playing LaShawn McCoy. This is a guy that, can bring home the title for you. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think the Dolphins are going to be hapless. I get it. I know the game's in Miami, but Buffalo's got the thing to play for. You're going to find some value, though. You're going to find some value at running back with Kenyon Drake. I think you're going to get like McCoy performance, like McCoy points, but for a lot better value, especially in daily. So look for those two guys to be your 1-2 punch. You throw in a Deion Lewis in there as well, and you got some tremendous value and a lot of points this week in daily. Receiver-wise, I don't know if I can count on much of anybody, and that's just because of the quarterback situation on both teams. Jarvis Landry may be able to get you some bottom-end wide receiver 2 type numbers. Charles Clay is going to be able to be a bottom-end tight end 1 for you. LaShawn McCoy, Kenyon Drake, that's where all the value is in this game.
Yeah, to look at this, and Damian Williams obviously still questionable for Miami. For Buffalo, Deontay Thompson questionable. Calvin Benjamin is questionable to be in this game. Charles Clay is questionable, but he's usually a guy that can fight through some things. If Clay is good to go, then he's somebody to look to as a low-end tight end too, I should say. In this one, LaShawn McCoy is where all the bacon is for Buffalo. If Buffalo's going to get it done, they're going to run it through LaShawn McCoy. The guy that's going to try and stop him, I agree, is Kenyon Drake. So I think that this is a game that's won in the trenches, on the ground for two teams. Miami's fighting for some type of respect. To be 7-9 is not a bad season without your starting quarterback, and Buffalo's trying to get in the playoffs. So I think Kenyon Drake and LaShawn McCoy are the people to look to. We'll take a very quick, fast break, and we will be back here in just a moment to finish things up and wrap up Fantasy Football Friday for Week 17. So roll back with us in just a second.
This is a wake-up call. Fast break.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Here with Mike Sofka, my co-host, as always, with fantasy football advice from Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Of course, myself, Dan Tortora, from wakeupcalldt.com. And we are bringing you fantasy advice every single week, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, your home for fantasy, on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Make sure you go out there and watch the games this weekend. And if you want to come hang out, listen, I'm parking it. I told Mike on the break, I am parking it in front of the television. I ain't moving. With New Orleans and Baltimore playing at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time, all the marbles are still going to be on. There's still going to be opportunities and chances for things to shift and change in the playoffs. This crazy NFL season that started getting a little insane in weeks 3 and 4 and 5 is insane all the way up to the bitter end, as we will not know what everything looks like until after the final games, which I think is the only way to do it. Next game up that we have for fantasy, Oakland Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. Oakland hasn't been anything but a spoiler in recent years, and except for last season, but they lost Derek Carr, so that was obviously not a normal season and obviously not a good way to go into the playoffs. This time around, they're trying to spoil the Chargers. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any spoiling going on here. I think it's going to be all Chargers. Chargers are scary. They're looking good. They look like the team I don't want to play in the playoffs if I'm anybody in the AFC. But, Phillip Rivers is going to be obviously QB1. Melvin Gordon's the number 2 overall running back this week, I think. And, they're going to continue that with a wide receiver in Keenan Allen. He's the number 2 wide receiver this week. The old man, Antonio Gates, 109 years old. He's the number 6 tight end this week. And, I wish I had enough faith in anybody else on the other side of the ball for Oakland. I really don't. Marshawn Lynch, high-end running back too, and that's pretty iffy in my mind. And, same thing goes with the quarterback situation, Derek Carr. I think he's a low-end quarterback too. So all your value is in the Chargers side of the ball.
Yeah, for me, with the Chargers going up in this game, Marshawn Lynch has gotten a little bit better, but he is a low-end running back, too, I would say, if you're looking at everything here. As far as the Raiders go injury-wise, Cordarrelle Patterson, Jared Cook, and Amari Cooper are all questionable in this game to play in the matchup. As far as the Chargers go, Melvin Gordon and Gates are questionable, but Gates finds a way to play, and so does Gordon. Outside of maybe Marshawn Lynch as your third option at running back, so to speak, I don't really see anything else for Oakland. Melvin Gordon's played injured, and he knows how to get it done. I like him in this one. And, to look at Keenan Allen or Antonio Gates are options as well. You don't want to leave Gates off and have him play and then have to deal with what that feels like sometimes. Arizona at Seattle. Thoughts on this one?
Well, Seattle has to win. Seattle has to win, and they need the Falcons to lose. So it's going to be, hopefully they're not, scoreboard watching there, but, hopefully they can keep focused. But Russell Wilson's the guy. I mean, if you have Russell Wilson, he's probably led you to your championship, and, he's the leading rusher. If he could throw the ball to himself, he would probably do that. But luckily he's got a guy named Doug Baldwin that can give him the opportunity to get wide receiver type numbers, and Paul Richardson's been coming on strong, but, he's still nothing more than a wide receiver 3. Tight end wise, Jimmy Graham, tight end 1, obviously, top 5 tight end. If they can get the production they're going to need to get to win against Arizona, and the great thing against Arizona is who's ever in the slot is going to have a big game. So look for them to try to move some guys around because, Patrick Peterson covers guys well, but the guy who's in the slot makes all the money against Arizona. And so all the value fantasy-wise, all the money fantasy-wise is on the Seattle side of the ball.
Yeah, and to take a quick look at any injuries here of note. For Arizona, Troy Nicholas is questionable. John Brown is questionable. Elijah Penny, their running back, and Kerwin Williams are both questionable to play in this game. And Elijah Penny has a groin injury, and those are usually the nagging ones that prevent a lot of movement as well as being out there on the field. Luke Wilson for Seattle at tight end, he is questionable in this matchup. Jimmy Graham was a non-participant in midweek. He is questionable to play in this game as well. So with that being said, to take a look at Arizona's side of the ball, Arizona has had a haphazard year. They've beaten some teams. They obviously hurt Tennessee, and beating Jacksonville didn't take Jacksonville out, but they've had some good punches that they've gotten in. Larry Fitzgerald's the guy to play, especially if John Brown is not going to be healthy enough to go or play at 100%. If he is, then look to John Brown as a flex guy. As far as Seattle goes in this matchup, Russell Wilson because he's playing for it. Doug Baldwin because he's playing for it. Those are the guys that I look to in this one. Next matchup is New Orleans at Tampa Bay. New Orleans got to make it happen too. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, New Orleans can clinch the South with, all they got to do is win. So, I like Drew Brees, of course. Tampa Bay's poor secondary. I think Drew Brees is going to have a big game. I think that bodes well for Michael Thomas. I think it bodes well for Melvin Ingram and Alvin Kamara. All those guys are going to put up, it's going to be ding, 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 ding. They're going to be scoring points left and right. So I think this is going to be a great game for any Saints players you may have on your roster. Tampa Bay, not so much. You may get value in a Peyton Barber, especially in daily leagues, as a low-end running back too, or a flex player for you. But all the money is on the New Orleans side of the ball.
Yeah, New Orleans is coming out here to put in that work. and they fended off Atlanta this past week, and that obviously showed some signs of where their head's at right now. They have Michael Humanawanui, Michael Thomas, and Brandon Coleman are all questionable for the game. So is Josh Hill, but he has been questionable all season long, hasn't really brought anything to the squad. As far as Tampa Bay goes, Cameron Brate, hip and knee, he is questionable. Just watch him. He's been playing through injury, and he's typically the top dog when it comes to Jameis Winston, likes to throw to the tight end. Deshaun Jackson's ankle injury has left him questionable as well. For me in this game, Drew Brees, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, I like them all. Ted Ginn Jr. as a flex guy, the man is timeless and has played for about 100 years, but he's going strong. As far as Tampa Bay goes, Mike Evans is an option for you. Maybe a Cameron Brate if you got to dig deep for a second tight end, but I think that, I'm leaning on the side of New Orleans as well. I think they're going to take care of business. Final game, Week 17, Cincinnati at Baltimore. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Baltimore has to win. They can clinch a playoff berth with a win, so they're going to be going all out here, and I think it's going to be all Baltimore, and I think that's where the value is here as well. Joe Flacco's got one of the highest rankings this week of any week I've had him. He's a high-end quarterback, too, number 14 overall on my board. The real value is going to be in running back for both teams. Alex Collins, the number 7 overall running back this week. So grab you some Alex Collins. And Giovanni Bernard, looks like Joe Mixon's going to be dinged up a little bit. Giovanni Bernard, you should be able to steal in daily fantasy. And he's going to catch a lot of passes as well. So that's great for PPR-type scoring. A.J. Green, of course, is going to get you mid to bottom end, wide receiver 1 type numbers. And I don't think there's a tight end on either team you can really write home about. Maybe Ben Watson. He might be good for maybe 4 yards, couple catches, maybe a touchdown. So all Baltimore in this one, and just your value is the running backs in this game.
Yep, and what I said about Detroit is that they could not lose any games, and they definitely couldn't lose to Cincinnati, and then they did. So Cincinnati, they're not going to the playoffs. The Marvin Lewis era of getting there and losing in the first round doesn't look like that is going to be the case anymore. But, for Cincinnati in this matchup, A.J. Green is an option for you. Giovanni Bernard, he's a low-end running back, too, for me because he's playing Baltimore. I like Alex Collins in this game. I like Joe Flacco as a low-end quarterback 1. And, as far as receivers, he throws it all over the place, so it's hard to lean on anybody for fantasy. If you had to, I'd say Mike Wallace, but I don't feel good about anybody predominantly on Baltimore's team for fantasy. That has been your advice for Week 17. If you're playing in your championship, make it happen, folks. And somebody's getting the trophy that we have from Pen and Trophy Center. Check them out at penandtrophy.com. Somebody's taking home the Lombardi with the plaque on the bottom, your name, your info, and somebody's taking home the toilet seat to put some M&Ms and Reese's inside of. Mike, as always, it's a pleasure to speak with you, and I hope that all goes well for you this week. I hope you enjoy football, and as you know, you and I have no off season, so we will be talking very soon.
All right, sounds great, Dan. Thanks.
All right, take care. That coming from Mike Sofka, Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Proudly brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub is our fantasy coverage. Thank you to the Wildcat, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. God bless, be well. Here are the things you need to know. Follow me on Twitter at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT, Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com. God bless you. Have a great day. Thank you to everybody that showed up and to our new team that came out to Muddy Waters in Baldwinsville to play game show night every Thursday at 7 p.m. You are all amazing. Big news coming up on something coming back to Baldwinsville, hosted by yours truly. We'll be making that and so much more on Facebook and Twitter and on Instagram, so make sure that you're following and liking the pages. Be well. Have a great week. God bless to you all, and a very happy New Year.